Welcome to the Happy Lawyer Project. I'm your host, Akoma Moronu, and I created this show to help lawyers find happiness in life with a law degree. Together with my guest, we provide the knowledge, skills, insight, inspiration, and encouragement you need to find your happy. I've had a lot of entrepreneurs on the show, but I haven't had the chance to interview many entrepreneurs who've launched actual physical products. That's why I was super excited to learn about today's guest. Justin Moore is a former BigLaw associate who left his firm to dive into the launch of Holly Hall Supply, a dermatologist-approved skincare line manufactured here in good old Texas. On the show, we chat about his journey in the law, his decision to make the leap, how his legal skills continue to serve him, and we even dive into the details of how he went from big idea to big launch. Enjoy! Welcome back to the show, lawyers, and welcome Justin Moore to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So Justin, I would love if you could just start with a brief description of who you are and what you do.
Sure. My name is Justin Moore. I'm a born Houstonian, on again, off again, but pretty much lifelong. In 2017, I left a career in big law. I was an associate at Vincent & Elkins in the Houston office, and I did a 6-month rotation in the New York City office as well, practicing capital markets, private equity, and mergers and acquisitions. And I left to start Holly Hall Supply Company, which is a premium shaving products and facial care products company. So we create our own line of dermatologist-developed products and sell them online, and have a plan in the near future to branch out into physical retail.
I am very excited to talk to you about this because I feel like so many of the former big law associates who I know who've gone into entrepreneurship really go into kind of the service-based industries. And so I want to dive into all of that. But before we go there, I have to say that your branding is on point.
Thank you so much.
And I was like researching your background because I was like, geez, like it took me like forever to get my like crappy branding together. And yours is like really good.
Oh,
so,
you're being too modest.
No, I was really impressed. I mean, your Instagram's really good. Your branding is really clean. I love it. And I saw that you were a business marketing major, and I wonder if that has something to do with it. But then I also wonder, if you were that good at that, how did you end up at law school?
So I graduated in 2009 from Georgetown University in DC. And Georgetown was a school that primarily put its graduates in the business school into investment banking. So when I went to Georgetown, actually I was a transfer. I started Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. I was playing football there. I loved the football program, wasn't really happy on the social aspect of it. It was more of a commuter school. I transferred to Georgetown, and my immediate thought was, I'm going to do the same thing everybody else does. I'm going to go to New York, to Wall Street, make a great salary. I took one finance class and immediately knew that was not for me. And marketing, really attracted me because I thought that there's marketing in every aspect of our lives. We're always marketing ourselves, even in, kind of our day-to-day reactions, whether in all our relationships, all leads into the marketing. So I thought that would be a skill that would carry well with me throughout the rest of my life. And when I graduated in 2009, that was, right after the recession, things came crashing down, and there weren't a lot of, job prospects in the marketing field. And law school was something that some people throughout my life had always mentioned, because I always love to debate anything that anyone puts in front of me. Even as a kid, I would always challenge. So, law school really, and this isn't the advice that I like to give people who are going to law school, but it basically was because I didn't know what else to do.
You and I both. I mean, I think that there's a large contingent of lawyers who were you were good at arguing and you weren't sure what else to do. But you were there for some time. And how did you finally come to the decision that it was time to leave?
It wasn't a light switch. It wasn't a negative experience that was, said I had enough of this, I have to go. And truth be told, I wasn't miserable. And, the salary that came along with a really demanding schedule, and not completely accounted for it, but it's certainly something I thought that I could do for a while longer. But really what made me decide it was time was that I kept putting these benchmarks that, okay, well, once I do this, once I pay off my loans, once I raise X amount of capital so I can bootstrap my idea, then that's going to be the right time. And I kept meeting people that were younger than me that were starting their own businesses. And it just clicked in my head of that, I'm just making excuses at this point, because there was nothing stopping people that were younger than me and didn't have as much experience as me in the world from doing it. Then, why am I putting up this next goal that I have to achieve before I get out there and do it? And the way that I thought about it was that, okay, if I felt like if I worked one more year, I could probably save, an extra $30,000, $40,000. Would that $30,000, $40,000 drastically change the ability of me to succeed in my endeavor? And the answer was not really. So at that point, I decided that if I'm gonna give this a go, if I'm really gonna do it, this is the time. Not married, don't have kids, so as long as I can put a little bit of food on the table for myself, I can make things work. So I felt like now, that being a year ago, was the best time available.
So from the moment you made that decision to the day you gave your notice, how long was that?
That was about 4 months. I think it was August that I decided that it was time. But I just had so many things going on. That was like that year for me. Everybody has it, where like everybody in your life is getting married.
Yep.
So I had like 5 weddings going on within that like 5 month span, most of them out of town. So I gave myself a little bit of time to cover those expenses, as well as build up a little bit more reserves.
And I don't need exact numbers or anything, but when you're talking about reserves, how much were you thinking, like in terms of 6 months, 1 year of living expenses? Did you have like a specific business plan around how much capital you would need? How did you determine how much money to stack up?
I joke a lot that I'm glad that I didn't know what I know now, because I probably wouldn't have been as confident leaving. But I tried to estimate 12 months. And my thought process at the time was that I would need about 3 to 4 months to launch the business, or at least get to the crowdfunding stage, which is how I got the initial capital for the business. With that additional 8 to 9 months, that would be plenty of time to get the business up and going, to where, a year circle later, that I would be able to draw some type of salary from the business. Things didn't work out like I planned in any way, shape, or form in terms of timeline. And that having that year of runway really helped, and actually went back on my initial plan to not practice law in any capacity, to take on legal work on a referral basis. That extended my runway even a little further than that, which is something that a lot of lawyers have that advantage, because we developed, especially if you gone through BigLaw or a very concentrated or part of the law that not a lot of people do. That's been a miracle in disguise for me, in terms of extending my runway and relieving that stress of, okay, I got 2 months, or if this doesn't work out, I got to find a job somewhere.
I love that you said the thing about, if you had known what you know now, you wouldn't have been as confident. Because I think a lot of lawyers think that if they think of everything, that will make it easier to jump. But I think it's actually the opposite. I think if you actually knew
Agreed.
You're never going to go.
Ignorance is bliss.
It really, really is. Like, even, and this is not in any way like supporting me or anything, but if I had known how hard it was going to be to have a podcast, there's no way I would have started a podcast.
I can only imagine the amount of work.
You're just like, oh, how hard can it be? I know how to talk. And you just think that it's going to be, that once you figure it out, it'll be easy. And I
started a blog, and I had no idea that how much work that was going to be. So I can only imagine for a podcast.
But then I also wanted to ask about quickly your referral business. How did you start doing that? How did you get your first referrals? And I'm a former Cap Markets BigLaw associate as well. So just, in case I ever need a runway.
Sure. So it really happened organically. I had a friend that was doing some real estate investing and wanted to start an LLC. And in, the 3+ years, almost 4 that I was working at B&E, I created formed more LLCs than I can count. So for me, it was really just a simple request. I had the time, and I did one for him and for his brother. And I just did it as a favor to a friend, and didn't really think much of it. Then maybe 3 weeks after that, he referred somebody to me, and, obviously I didn't do it for this referral for free. But I figured it was like right after Christmas, and it was like, why not? I can make a few $100. And I really kind of put it to the side after that. And then as I started to see like, okay, this business is taking more capital than I expected. And there were unexpected expenses all around it. And it's not that they were just, crippling amounts, but it just wasn't in my budget. And as I started to see, okay, my funds are being depleted at a quicker rate than I had planned for. Okay, what can I do to, kind of, right the course? And then that immediately came back into my mind of, okay, well, obviously I have a service that I can provide that people need. I also ran across a friend that did LegalZoom or not, it wasn't LegalZoom exactly, but essentially somewhat service, doing the same function. When I saw what they had prepared for, I was like, and I heard what, she paid. It's like, I could have done a much better job for the same amount of money. That it just kind of clicked that, I have services that, people need and that, some people are willing to pay for. So I really started off just with my own network and just letting them know that like, hey, I'm doing this. And then a lot of referrals just came in. It's I really have to give my personal network a lot of credit for how that's developed, because it's really just been doing work for friends or, extensions of friends. And then, hoping that down the line they refer someone who's looking for assistance.
And did you ever create any sort of a presence, like a website or business cards or anything like that? Or is it really just referral-based business on the side?
So I put my resume on a website, but that was really the extent of it. I don't know if I even put my contact information, but I created a legal address email. Yeah. I just didn't want when you put that, the site that's after @ to go to a blank page or, does not exist. I thought that would be a bad look. So I didn't really invest any time or money into creating a website presence, but you can see my resume and some of the things that I've done if you go to my site.
I absolutely love that because you managed to make money without overcomplicating it.
Right.
And I think that so many people who are trying to build a business would then be like, well, let me do my legal thing. Let me start a solo practice on the side, and like they start blowing all this money on this solo practice that was supposed to just bring in money, but is now costing them money.
Agreed. And that's definitely something that I took advice from a friend who's been a solo for, I believe, since we graduated law school. And we were out to lunch and I was just kind of asking her, okay, well, how do you plan out, your expenses? How do you, what services do you use? And she basically said that, unless she has no choice, she doesn't pay for anything that she has to pay for on a monthly basis. And that seems a little particular, especially when like the service may be $40 here or $100 there. But the more that you continue to add on those different services that you may not need on a very regular basis, that's taking away from the bottom line. So that's something that, especially on the legal side, that I've tried to maintain, is just keep bare bones costs. So I don't have any permanent, secretarial help. I have people that I can reach out to if things get a little too demanding and I need that. But I've tried to keep expenses as low as possible for the reasons you just said. It's really, I do enjoy that work. Don't get me wrong. But the main purpose as to why I'm doing it right now is to get the bills paid and extend my runway so that I can invest more money into my company.
So let's get back to your company. I mean, it's really daring to go from lawyer to skincare. Like, I don't look like, what about skincare spoke to you? What was the exact kind of problem in the market that you saw that you felt you wanted to address?
So I get that question a lot, and I respect everybody who asks it because it means you were actually paying attention, because that does kind of jump off of the page a bit, but it's not as random as it seems. So my dad is a dermatologist, and I practically grew up in his office. I mean, there was a swing set in his office where like his employees would push me as a baby. So like I literally grew up in his office, and he's had his own skincare line for the past, 2018? So well over 20 years. So I grew up in the skincare industry, and this was really more so a return to what I know than even going out and learning the law was. So it really was kind of a natural transition back into it. In terms of what I saw in the market, there are some brands that are in the space that I am. So each of our products, and we have 3, are priced at $18. So, there are products that are going to more the upscale shaving demographic, but I felt like there were no products in that space that were offering high quality products, but also presenting it in a way that, makes people feel some type of way about themselves. So for instance, kind of going back to marketing class, like the brand of all brands is Apple. Of course, Apple makes very great products, but the reason why Apple is so successful is because, users identify themselves, with the brand itself. And I didn't see that. And that's the niche, we're going after. And so it's a very fair assessment to say that the market is saturated, and there's probably more players in this space than there ever has been before. However, I've always been of the mindset that, whether you're in a space with 100 or 10, whoever executes the best is the one that's going to win.
When you were speaking, it reminded me of are you familiar with the ladies from We Shave? Is that what they're called? It's a women's line, and the branding, the concept reminds me very much of yours.
Okay.
It's a clean shave, and it's very focused on women and kind of the way they shave and creating an experience around women shaving, because, the way, at least in popular culture, you think of men learning to shave from their dads, and there's this whole ritual around it, and that doesn't exist for women. It's kind of this like shameful thing.
I'll definitely check it out. Okay.
And so I think you'd be really interested in her. She's really dynamic, wonderful, strong Black woman doing her thing kind of thing.
Hey, I want us all to win.
Yeah. But I also love your point about saturated markets, because I think that, there's so many, I know we love to use the word disruptors these days, but the thing I always tell myself to get myself motivated is, when you think about something like starting a blog, is there really never going to be another blog that does well? Like, have all the blogs that are ever going to do well been started? Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, so why is there never going to be another, whatever the case may be? Because you look out in the market, you're like, it's already there, and you're like, so that's done.
Well, think of it this way. Right? Yeah, there's new water companies that are still coming out. So if there's room for new water companies, I feel like there's room for new shaving products companies.
There's this taco joint that I drive by on the way to work, and I always tell myself, if you have the balls to open another taco joint in Dallas, Texas, you think there's a saturated market. It's taco places in Dallas, Texas. But they think that they have something that they can sell that people are willing to buy. And so, if anything, perhaps we should take the perspective that there's a hungry market for the product, and that's why there's so many people who want to get in. So you've talked a little bit about how you crowdfunded the capital to get started. Can you tell us a little bit about that process? In order to crowdfund something like this, and I know nothing about raising capital despite being a capital markets attorney.
It's a little different on that.
Yeah. Do you have to actually create any products, or is it really about just creating a story around the products and then getting funding for the first round of products?
So there's a couple of ways to do it. And I believe I've been out of the game for a little while, but I believe it was the Jobs Act. President Obama passed, basically allowed for, kind of removed a lot of the restrictions for actually raising money and giving equity. So I did not go that route where people who, are investing in the project. There are a lot of platforms now that allow you to do that or to raise money via debt instruments. But I chose to go kind of with the advent of crowdfunding with Kickstarter. And with Kickstarter is a very unique platform because it doesn't require that you've actually made this product yet. It's really bringing, coming to your networks into the online community and saying, hey, I want this to exist. And if you believe that it should exist as well, please donate to that. And if together we're able to make this happen as a reward for your support, I would like to offer, XYZ benefit to you. So in my case, I went to product development, and before I actually did any production runs, I went to Kickstarter with that pitch of that this is my vision of what this brand is and what it could become. And my goal was to raise $20,000 in 30 days. And we were lucky enough and blessed enough to raise $27,000 in that 30-day period. So that helped reimburse me for a lot of the development costs that went into the product, as well as give us enough for inventory and a few months worth of runway.
That's awesome. That's both an amazing amount of money to raise such a small amount of time just from kind of a small idea, but also not like a huge sum of money. Because I think sometimes people think you need like hundreds of thousands of dollars and you need to create millions of,
Exactly. And that's one of the biggest things that I've learned in this process is that don't be afraid to start small. And sometimes that means doing it yourself. Sometimes that means it's not perfect. But one of the things that I have to keep telling myself is don't let great be the enemy of good. If you have something that, you think can do well in the marketplace, or, don't wait until it's perfect, because one, it'll never be perfect. And two, the thing that I'd tell anyone who's starting a business, whether it be service or product oriented, what you think about it and all of the different iterations and tweaks that you're making, none of that matters until the market weighs in and tells you what they think. So, you can spend months and months trying to perfect something, but that doesn't mean that you made it any better. The market may have preferred an existing iteration of what you did, but you didn't put it out there. And it takes a lot of getting out of your own way to sometimes put something out there that you're not completely confident behind. But I think it's a necessary step in order to not only getting to the perfect product, but getting there before you run out of money.
There was so much good advice in there, and I don't even know how to summarize it. So I'm just going to let everyone take a moment to take it in and ask you kind of separately, have you always kind of had that clarity of vision? Because you make it sound so linear. And I know that starting a business, even when you talk about the fact that it's not, there's a clarity with which you talk about starting your business. And I wonder if that's something that is natural to you in your personality, or that you've learned, or is something I'm perceiving because you're telling the story looking back?
I think it's probably a combination of all three of those things, to be honest. I do pretty well when I'm pushed up against making a decision that I will choose one. That doesn't say that I won't sometimes look back and think I made the wrong one, but I'm pretty good about, rolling the dice and, letting the chips fall where they may, knowing that I made, at least did my homework to make the best decision available. But a lot of what I, was just talking about are just the lessons that I've learned in the past year. And those are the lessons that, I picked a lot of people's brain, and that's kind of like a lot of that is a synopsis of what I've learned in the past year mixed with a lot of the advice that I've gotten. And I can't say that I listened to all of that advice the first time it was told me. Sometimes I had to learn that the hard way. But part of what's kind of prepared me for this moment is that I did some, I guess what I would call micro entrepreneurial projects before I actually went out on my own and started a real business. So for instance, I developed an app. And I never actually did anything with it, and it didn't cost me too much to do. I'm not a coder, so I was paying someone to do this for me. But I tinkered with this app for about, I had what you would call an MVP, a minimally viable product that I should have taken to the market and seen what people thought. But instead, I tinkered with it for another 4 or 5 months and spent another $2,000. And what I was left with at the end, I hated. It was, if I was to rank it, it was like an 8. And when I first got that first MVP iteration, and after I tinkered with it for 4 or 5 months, it was like a 3.
No.
And it's like I basically, I tinkered with it, I ruined it, and I still had no feedback as to what the market thought about it. I still didn't know whether I even had anything. So that was kind of the lesson that's informed me from here on out. Is that, it's really nerve-wracking to put things out there, because once you put them out there, they're there. We're in the internet age. There's no taking it back. But I won't even say don't be afraid to fail, because I don't believe there's that many people who really are that confident in their own abilities that they're just not even afraid to fail. But it's, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable about it.
So let's dive into that just a tad more, because you talked a little about all the people you spoke to, and you said that, you do the research and then you feel like you're pretty good at making a decision once you've done the research. And I think that's easy to say, but so many people get stuck at that stage. They feel like if they just talk to one more person, or if they just read one more book, or if they take one more course, and it's just, you could do that for years. So I feel like even there, you have to at some point say enough is enough. How do you manage kind of that natural need to have information but not take it too far? Do you set timelines for yourself? Do you naturally, instinctively know when you're ready to go? Or
so that's a great question, and it actually kind of ties back into something I learned as a first year associate. of when you're given those fabulous research projects, which you're only getting because nobody has any idea in the direction in which they're sending you. And the senior associate that I was working with, basically said, hey, research this. I don't know if there's even an answer. When you feel like you've gotten to the point where you're not really processing any new valuable information, then call it quits and let me know what you found. And I've tried to take that approach. And some of the best advice I got from someone I really look up to is don't listen to everybody. And the point at which I try to stop researching and stop soliciting more advice is when I feel like the information that I'm getting is not value add to what I already know. The advice that I'm getting isn't changing any perception or assumption that I already have. It's just another perspective. So if you challenge my assumption, then, you weaken my argument as to why I should do, X this way. But if you're just simply offering another perspective on it and I'm not getting any value add feedback, that's when I feel like it's time to shut it down and roll those dice.
That's really good advice. And I think a lot of people could use that even when it comes to researching at a law firm,
Definitely.
I definitely was that first year who would research long into the night for something that didn't exist. Just I was so terrified to tell the partner that it didn't exist and be wrong.
Understood.
So what does your schedule look like these days compared to kind of life in Big Law?
All over the place. And I guess it's really not that different, to be honest, from a scheduling standpoint. I start more or less around the same time, probably a little earlier now. I probably don't go as late as often as I used to, but it's really just like it was in Big Law. And, you were on capital markets. So the transactional side, when there's a lot to do, the hours suck. when things are kind of streamlined and I'm waiting things to kind of unfold, and it looks like more like a normal job. But I will say the fact that I'm dictating when it happens plays a much different role on my psyche, because it's not I was going to have friends with dinner, but I got an email, so my whole evening is blown. It's more so I'm going to dinner with friends. There's something that's kind of nagging me. I'd really feel more comfortable if I got it done tonight. After dinner, I'm going to go ahead and see if I can knock that out so I feel a little bit more comfortable. So the type A personality of a lawyer is not completely out of my system.
Do you have any tips or tricks or strategies or anything you do to try to manage that? Because obviously, as the sole kind of driver of the business, you could work on it 24/7.
Right.
And, some people like to work out. Some people create schedules for themselves. I just wasn't sure if there is something that you like to do to kind of create that mental divide so it just isn't consuming all of your mental energy.
So I have not figured that out. So I'm certainly not an expert in that department, and that's something that I'm working on. But one thing I try to do is put that workout on the front of my day. If I can work out early in the morning, I feel like I'm much more in charge of my day, because I don't have to utilize every second of the day before I can, clock out at 7 to get a workout in. So that helps a lot from a mental stress standpoint. But I think after you do it for a while, and it was in the beginning, I was working worse than Big Law hours, but I started to realize that the amount of time I put in is not directly correlated with the quality of my ideas or what I'm putting out. So I really kind of soured on the working 24 hours as from a return on investment standpoint. That I found like sometimes if I do other things, I actually come up with better ideas. So it's all over the place. My strategy is constantly changing on that based on, what's going on in my life, what's going on with, my law practice. So it's constantly changing. And to be honest, I'm still trying to figure that one out.
No, I appreciate your honesty. And I take your point that, it's definitely a work in progress. I think it is for most people. But the fact that you're cognizant of the reality that when you do other things, you actually do come up with better ideas. I think so. It takes people some time to get to that point. And they think doing other things is a waste of time or a distraction or a luxury, and they don't realize that it could actually benefit their business. So I think that that's a point worth making and worth noting for the listeners. But I haven't actually let you tell us about your products. And before we wrap up, I'd love if you could just share a little bit more about kind of what are your products, how are they different, and kind of what's coming down the road, where can people buy them? Just Give us your spiel.
Sure.
Here's your chance.
I got that ready for you. Don't worry. So we have when we launched with 3 products: a face wash, a shave gel, and a face moisturizer. All of the products are paraben free, which is a preservative that's fallen out of favor in the past 5 to 10 years for people who are concerned about healthy living. And I'd say the biggest product differentiator that we have is our shave gel. Our hydrating shave gel is clear. And there's always the traditional shave gels and foams. They lather up and they block what you see. And I think the people have always assumed, because that's the way it's done, is the way that it has to be. And that actually doesn't provide any tangible benefit. So we removed that so you can actually see what you shave.
That's a simple but brilliant idea.
Right. And the traditional method is to apply lather, shave, see where you missed, apply lather again, and then shave those missed spots. So if you're looking to save a little time, we got you covered. But even more importantly than that, our product actually penetrates the skin and softens the hair follicle at the root, so that as you bring the razor across, you get a lot less drag and a lot less irritation. So it's going to feel much better. And it's also, your skin is absorbing the hydration that's in the shave gel. So not only you have the functional of being able to see. So if you're a man with a beard or mustache, it's a lot easier to trim your line. I've certainly have had to shave my whole mustache or beard off because I ruined it because I couldn't see and I messed up the line. So that worry is taken away. All of our products are available at hollyhallsupply.com. Our social media handles for Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook are at hollyhallsupply. And as far as where we're going in the near future, we're launching a multi-city tour in upscale barbershops. Can't announce who the strategic partner is, but we're partnering with a household brand that I think most people will know to bring our product to the road in cities all across America.
That's really exciting. How long did it take you from the time you did the first crowdfunding campaign to get the product out, to get your first ones in your hand?
Sure. So we did the crowdfunding from July to early August, and we had a little bit of a setback with Hurricane Harvey, pushing things by a couple weeks. But we were able to get product in-house in late October, and that process was grueling, to say the least. I complain now about when I have to send out 5 or 10 orders a day, but at that point we were sending out hundreds per day. And we fully launched website. If you ordered this today, we ship today. That was late November of 2017. So approximately 4 months.
So in the last 4 months, you found a household distributor to partner with to get this out into more brick and mortars.
That was on the front end. So we had that strategic partner lined up before we kicked. Yeah. So the Kickstarter really was, we had to wait for those numbers to come in to determine production quantities, just because we didn't want to assume what those numbers would be. And then if we overshot that, have to do an additional run. So that was just a matter of logistics. And also if the number was higher, we wanted to be able to take advantage of economies of scale.
Where are your products produced, actually put together?
Here in Houston, Texas.
Oh, fantastic.
Our packaging comes from Dallas, Texas. Shout out to Dallas.
Yeah.
And the product is manufactured and filled here in Houston.
Well, I could talk forever about this because I just think that what you've done in such a short amount of time is really phenomenal. But I want to respect your time, and I will include links to everything that you've mentioned today on the website so people can pick up their product. And I assume the product can be used by women as well, even though it's marketed towards men.
So we're still figuring out the right marketing blend, but the products are unisex, and we consulted with women at every stage of development. So certainly great for women and for men.
Yeah, no, this clear gel idea, I'm really, really I like it. When you say it, it just seems so obvious to me that would be the solution. But
it's fun to see the look in people's faces when I explain it to them. It's like, oh, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it really does. But it's amazing because I think that's the problem when people just start from where they are instead of think about what they want to create and create that. Because like you said, they assume that since the lather's always been there, that the lather's a part of the product that people expect.
Right.
But it's kind of annoying to most of us, apparently, it turns out. and we just accept
Certainly
it because
to
we
me.
have to. And now that you say it serves no function, why do we accept it at all?
The way it's been done.
Exactly. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the project and sharing your story here with me and my audience tonight. The last question I'd like to ask you, which I ask everybody who comes on the show, is what do you believe separates happy lawyers from lawyers who struggle to find happiness in life with a law degree?
I think there's very few people who I've met that are on the happier side, that are on the happy side at all times. I think by definition, the law is a very demanding field, very stressful field. And it doesn't allow you to control a lot of the situations around you. You can't control how your clients act. You can't control how your superiors act. But I think the people that one can find joy and fulfillment in other aspects of their lives, whether that be hobbies, entrepreneurial endeavors, or just, engaging themselves with communities that add something to their lives, I think I've noticed, tend to be more happy. So I think if you, outside of those rare cases of the people that just really love their job, like that person that's like happy to be going back into the office at 10 p.m., I'm not talking about that person. But if you can find something outside of your job, or even inside of your job, that's not necessarily, the financial driver. So, I have some friends who are still in BigLaw where they find a lot of passion in the pro bono work that they do. They even look at the billable hours as kind of the means to the end, but they really find passion in the way that their law degree helps them help people. I would say for myself that the way that legal education changed the way that I think, the way that I approach problems, has given me a lot of satisfaction, because I still have not paid off all of those loans. So I still have to cut that check every month, and feeling like it was a value add to me as an individual and as a person makes me feel a lot better about, going through that experience and racking up a Bentley worth of student loans.
I think that's a really good point. I think that a lot of people kind of focus on the negative parts, and let's be honest, there's a big old pile of those in the corner.
No shortage.
But, there's a lot of ways in which our law degree serves us, and whether it's being at BigLaw or giving you the opportunity to do something on the side, I think there is value to be had there if you look for it, but it's hard to see value in anything if you're not looking for it.
Agreed.
So I think that's really great advice, and I haven't heard that before. So thank you so much for sharing, and thank you for coming on.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening this week, you guys, and joining me for the Happy Lawyer Project podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please feel free to share it with your friends, and I'd love for you to head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's already left a review, sent me an email, DM'd me on Instagram, or reached out to me in any other way. I truly appreciate you and love hearing from you. And I want to just remind everyone that this week's sponsor is Common Bond. So if you're considering refinancing your student loans this year, I would definitely head over to commonbond.co/happylawyer to check them out. As a reminder, you'll receive a $200 cash bonus for using that link. Until next week, I hope everyone finds their happy.